w- we got to talk about Zelensky, I think, a little bit more. And I'll throw up the unusual green screen footage while we get your response. But yeah, he did appear in a very unusual way in what was said to be downtown Kiev, or Kyiv, as every U.S. correspondent likes to say now. They're code switching. Where is Zelensky? Do you believe he's in Kiev, or has he slipped out to Poland? What's his? I mean, he seems to be in the role of his life. He really is loving this role. There's definitely some Netflix special in it for him. He's famous. I guess my just two questions: where is he? And number two, do you think that he still can govern Ukraine, particularly a rump state west of the Dnipro River? Couldn't he be subjected to some kind of internal coup by ultra nationalist elements who've been calling for a civil war all along and have always opposed him?
Well, let's start with looking at it from this angle. Why isn't he dead? Here's a charismatic Churchillian figure leading his troops to glory. He's the most legitimate command and control target I've ever seen.
Right.
And if I were the Russians, I would want him dead unless your political solution requires legitimacy at the top of Ukraine. See, if Zelensky is removed, we already know that NATO has created the foundation for a government in exile. So if you eliminate Zelensky, they will set up a government in exile, and the Russians will never be able to impose their will on this government because it's a NATO tool operating outside of Kiev. The Russians need Zelensky to stay in Ukraine, to stay in Kiev, so that they can get him to capitulate. Because if a deal is negotiated to bring this conflict to an end, it's going to have to include Ukrainian recognition of Crimea. It's going to have to include Ukrainian recognition of the independence of Donbass and Lugansk, and it's going to have to include the Ukrainians agreeing to whatever mechanisms put in place that creates perpetual neutrality, non-NATO membership. The only person right now that can do this and make that agreement survive the legality test is Zelensky, because he has been, again, the Russians are smarter than anybody else at this game. By letting the CIA build this reputation, craft this personality, craft this image, they've made him unimpeachable in the mind of the West. So if Zelensky comes out and says, I recognize Crimea, who in the West is going to say, no, you don't? They can't. It's the recognition. Now, if the Russians kill Zelensky or he's removed and a puppet's put in place, nobody will respect the decision of the puppet. The Russians need Zelensky, and they need Zelensky in Ukraine. So I think the Russians are actively manipulating the game that's being played around Zelensky to keep him in Ukraine, not in Lvov. Lvov doesn't do any good. Lvov is not Ukraine. In Kiev, Lvov he's already halfway to NATO. He needs to be in Kiev. Now, Kiev's a dangerous place. And it's dangerous for a couple things. It's dangerous because even though people like me are probably telling Zelensky the same thing I'm saying, because it's pretty damn obvious in my book, he has to be nervous that he is indeed target number one. People have told him, you're the number one target. The Russians want to kill you. So they got to move him around, and they got to hide him. They got to do all this stuff, hence the green screen to disguise where he truly is, etc. But he's also has to be insulated from the ultra right-wing nationalists who've already threatened to string him up by the neck until dead. I mean, they've already said, we're going to hang you on the street if you ever do anything we don't want. And trust me, the day Zelensky decides that he's going to enter into this peace agreement with Russia, because that day will come, they're going to try and kill him. And so the Russians have to keep him alive. So I think some of the people around Zelensky are deep cover Russian security operatives whose sole job is to keep this guy alive.
Scott,
Russia
sorry,
needs him.
just quickly, do you believe that Denis Kariv, the negotiator on Zelensky's team, was killed by the SBU for that reason?
He was killed by somebody for that reason. Yeah, I mean, that's the story. I don't have any corroborating evidence. I just look at that story and said, that makes sense. That makes sense. That he was, they found out that he was receiving or passing on information, either receiving information from the Russians or passing on information to the Russians about negotiating strategies, and they gave him the 75-cent solution, cost of a bullet in the back of the head.
Yeah, for those who don't know, a member of the Ukrainian negotiation team was killed in the streets of Kiev, I think, during the first week of negotiations. His name is Denis Kariv. So I've been wondering about that one.
It just disappeared from the media. It was
Yep.
reported on, and then we never heard anything else again. And I think the Ukrainian security services said that he resisted arrest, and that's why they killed him. But then another branch held him as a hero.
Okay.
Sounds like an assassination to me.
Yeah. Look, the Russians have done. I'll give you an example from history of why this scenario is plausible. Edward Shevardnadze, the former Georgian president, was in Sukhumi in late September of 1993, when the city was about to fall to Abkhazian rebels supported by Russian troops. And Shevardnadze gave a speech about, "I'm going to stay here and fight till the death." Shevardnadze was a former Soviet foreign minister, and Boris Yeltsin, who was going through a difficult time at that time, remember he was getting ready to have tanks fire into the Russian parliament, called in the Alpha team, Alpha Group, which are the Russian equivalent of Delta Force, and said, "We can't have former foreign minister of the Soviet Union dragged through the streets of Sukhumi. Get him out." And the Russians, in the middle of this horrible fighting that was taking place, got a snatch team in there and took Shevardnadze out. And one of the reasons why they would get a snatch team in so easily is that the snatch team was already there. They just simply activated the resource. And I believe that when the time comes, there's a Russian snatch team that will get Zelensky out to NATO. They don't want him in Russia. They don't want to take him prisoner. They want him out. They want him gone, alive. But before that happens, having committed to an agreement that gives Russia everything it needs.
Wow. Well, ultimately, Shevardnadze was taken out in a CIA-backed color revolution, despite his friendly relations with the first Bush.
The CIA breaks everything it touches. They're not good agency. They have some good people. I have friends there, had friends there. But whatever they used to be able to do that was good, they don't. I just have no use for this agency anymore because it doesn't stand for anything American. They stand for everything that's anti-American.